A lot of people told me they want me to post a video where I accidentally miss the chair and fall on my butt. When I do, I promise that I'll actually do that. I've got no problem showing that. Everybody makes mistakes. We all miss the landing zone from time to time. You get a little bit older, and now that I'm 49, I've actually experienced a lot. I've done a lot in life. Lived in Russia, used to skydive every day, used to cave dive nearly every day. Man, you talk about equipment intensive. You talk about needing an extraordinary amount of radically expensive equipment. Cave diving, wow. I had an underwater scooter, O2 decompression tanks, pairs of twin steel 90 with yokes, redundant BCD, buoyancy control devices, cave lights. I miss the days though where I used to go back into a cave, underwater cave. This is in High Springs, Florida, where all the underwater caves are. And there'd be a big domed room, and you'd be worn out because you're actually swimming. Even with the scooter, you're still flapping your legs, kicking, going along. You get worn out, you need a rest. So you can't rest on the floor of the cave because it's like 5 to upwards of 20 feet of silt, depending on where it's at. So you inflate your BCD and you rest on the ceiling with your BCD inflated. You take a little rest on the ceiling like a bat, and you take a Snickers bar with you, something that isn't going to melt in the water. Anyway, you take it out, your Snickers bar, or whatever, some sort of chocolate bar, something like that, and you take your regulator out, put your regulator back. I miss those days. Like, I'm like 1,000+ feet back in the middle of a cave, 110 feet deep on average. And there's only one way out, only one way to get out. This is why you follow the rule of thirds. A third of your air in, a third of your air out, and a third of your air for emergencies. And I'm hanging nearly upside down from the roof of an underwater cave, chomping on a stick. I don't know why. When you get old, you start to reminisce. Wanted to talk about things. This is about life lessons. These are incredibly important ones. I like to make a brilliant example of this. This is something all of us suffer from, and I was paid a good bit of money to design a perfect holster for a particular item. I guess you know what a holster is for. So, with leatherwork, and I don't know if you know it or not, but a holster is not like a wallet where it's just 2 flat pieces of leather, which also takes an enormous amount of time. You're talking about 3-dimensional curvature and weird little angles and stuff you have to follow. You have to take the piece, wrap it, that's called wet forming, and wrap it in saran wrap, to protect it from the water, and then you run the leather under hot water where it becomes very pliable, and you sit there, you hand mold it like Play-Doh. And to get all the angles right, you have to prototype it, and then you cut here, you cut there, you keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting, and you ultimately want to end up with a pattern that you can rely on 100%. So this took about 4.5, because I sew it up too, and once you sew it up, you're prototyping it. So this is like about the 5-hour mark to get this pattern. This is the bottom pattern, and this is the top pattern. And of course you take this like this, and since it's 3-dimensional, it's like that, and so you end up with this 3-dimensional pattern. You can see all these weird angles. And that took 5 hours, and then I sewed it up. And then I wanted to make some changes because, as we're talking, and my hands are so sore because you're sitting there pressing this wet, very, very, very thick leather against this 3-dimensional object to wet form it. People's like, why does a leather piece cost so much? Now, of course, once you're into production, you don't have to do that. But when you're prototyping something, it's like if someone wants something completely and wholly original that's like perfect design, it's like, well, I can do a perfect design, but it's going to take like 7 hours total to prototype it, and that's what I did. So I created this pattern. Wait, again, I haven't got to the good part yet. 7 hours to prototype it to get to this. And this is about what we believe and understand about things in this world, and we all suffer from this. I'm actually getting to a point very quickly here. And I made this out of alligator, and this is the prototype. It's like 95% of the way there. It's just a ton of work in this. I made this for somebody. And but it wasn't perfect. It needs to be perfect because they're paying for perfection. So after making this pattern and looking at it in, you know, the living and breathing form, where I can actually see any issues where it needs to be redesigned, this is phase one. So I got 7 hours into phase one, and then I work off of phase one to build perfection on stage two, which here's perfection stage two. So, and this took another about 4.5 hours, so like 10 hours into just creating this perfect pattern, top and bottom, so I could create, I can actually say it, perfection. Some people say, well, you could buy that. Yeah, you could go on eBay and other places, but you won't get something like this. Genuine perfection. And here it is, nice and shiny. It's absolutely perfect. People like, and this is the point I'm getting to. If you didn't do leather work or something, and I'm making a point not just about leather work, about people's lives, and we need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to realize where they're at. Any Joe Schmuck would look at it. It's just two pieces of leather. You sewed it together, and It's like, no, this is a completely original piece. It took me, well, in total, a little over 10 hours to get to the point of perfection. And, this is the perfection level. So, 10 hours of my time where my hands are sore as hell. Point is that we all think and consider things that we think we know that we don't actually know. I see this every day in life. I'm world's foremost expert on a few things. One thing I'm absolutely the world's foremost expert on. I'm trying to toot my own horn here. Being egotistical, I'm just saying that for a fact, is the word anata and anatman, the philosophical, metaphysical denotation and connotation of this word. I know all occurrences, 556 of them. But there's millions of people out there that are absolutely certain they know what this word means, and we all suffer from this at various things in life. We just don't have a clue. We think we got a clue, but we don't. Everybody, whether it be big nutshell or small nutshell, are all living in our own little silly nutshells, and we don't have an understanding of anything. Nearly 100% of the world out there thinks, why does this holster, why did it cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars? And I'm going to make another one like this, which will be covered in alligator. This is the first one, which I'll basically nearly give away, even though there's 6 hours of labor into it. It works perfectly fine. It's 95% of the way there. Why would something like that cost hundreds? Because they only wanted one. It's a completely original prototype. It's like, well, yeah, but it's just two pieces of leather. I mean, all you did was just sew it together. It's like, no, that was the last step in creating it. There's 9 hours, 8 hours before I get to this point. And we all have these things where we don't really understand what's going on. Some of us are super experts in one thing or a few little things. Some people are not experts in anything. Holster fell on the ground over there. And we need to take a step back. We look at people that look or act weird. Some people do have issues. Who knows what's wrong with them? I mean, they're like, man, that dude is weird or whatever. Maybe I look weird. I have covered in tattoos. Everybody says I look like Uncle Fester. You need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And most people that have been through hell, you've not walked a mile in their shoes. You wouldn't even want to. I've had a stressful life, but I'm not dying of hunger, obviously, and some sort of wasteland somewhere, obviously. Yeah, I got a roof over my head, so hey, great for all of that. But I took care of my wife dying of cancer for 10 years, and everybody out there has their own little issues. I got some weird emails from one person once, and it's like, man, these emails are weird. They're just off the hook weird, and I had no idea, making assumptions about things. And this person has got maybe 2 or 3 months left to live. I don't want to say what disease they have because that's too personal, even though I'm not naming the person. It's like this person doesn't care about anything. There's nothing this person, other than death probably, is worried about in this world. I mean, they're just letting it rip. They've only got a few months left to live, so we all walk around in our own little nutshells, and we don't really have an understanding. That's a lesson we all need to take to heart, and as long as people are not hurting other people, I don't care what anybody does with their life. I don't carry any flag or anything like that, but just let people be themselves. A lot of people are lost in their own fantasy lands. I really am not, but I mean, my escape might be, I don't know. I haven't had ice cream in a while. I think an escape would be like a bowl of ice cream in a movie, which I haven't done in a long, long time. But people are living their own fantasy worlds, and these are their coping mechanisms for dealing with the horrors of life. And life is a bunch of horrors, obviously. So we need to be considerate of others on that front. Here's something else everybody should take to note, and this is, I don't know where I heard this from, and that is this, especially with what's going on in the world right now, and that is that you should understand this. Civilization is the thinnest absolute crust, like a pie crust, the thinnest crust that sits over top of the largest, most dangerous, enormous volcano. And everybody really takes things for granted. When supply chains collapse, I mean, things will get so real so quick that your head will spin. People need to realize what society is. We got police and laws, and if like something bad happens, they can call 911. All of that stuff is just, once again, the thinnest crust over top of the largest volcano. If you don't take that to heart and actually realize it, internalize it, that doesn't mean you need to live in fear or anything. It means you need to have situational awareness, and most people don't have situational awareness. You really need to be aware of things, and people are not. Here's something else, and I know I don't cover myself in luxury items other than a gold necklace my dead wife gave to me. I mean, I don't have any luxury items, but luxury items are really only to impress you, not anybody else. If you're trying to impress other people, then you're living the wrong life. I think we've all been guilty of that to some degree, here or there in life, but you're not going to take anything with you out of this world, and you didn't bring anything into it, so focus. And that lesson I did learn early in life, not trying to impress anybody, but people spend their entire lives trying to impress somebody else. They spend their money trying to impress other people. It's like, why do that? You need to, and here's a lesson that I should have been taught early in life, and I never was. I've learned it, but I mean, I've made enormous mistakes. I don't really have any money, and I have some land, making mostly the right decisions now, but stuff that I was never taught that you should be taught, at least learn anyway, is that you need to make, I failed at this, okay? I admit that I failed at this because I was not taught this, even though I'm a wise person. You need to make your money work for you rather than you working for your money. There's a chart I saw recently that said poor people, when they get money, they spend it on stuff, like luxury items, this or that or whatever. And rich people, they look at the money, it's like, how can I make this work for me? What can I do? Invest it, buy land, which I've been doing. What can I do to make this work for me? And the chart also said, it's very, very accurate, is that poor people buy stuff as soon as they get money, luxury items, things they don't really need. Rich people only do that much, much later in life. They'll buy themselves some luxury items. But they're always reinvesting it and trying to make the money work for themselves. I wish I was taught that early in life. That's something I personally failed at. Obviously so. Here's something else, and I can tell you this genuinely, I have expertise on this. As someone on social media, you'll get emails from people that just hate you for no reason, they just despise you, they want to, do harm to you. I get emails like that, here and there. The government, just like crazy people, should be seen and not heard. There's an old saying about children should be seen and not heard. You ignore them, but you always have your eye on them. One thing that I've followed for the past many years, especially so much experience on social media, is that there are some really crazy people out there. Not many of them percentage-wise, but I mean, they're just radically crazy. And you don't feed them. They're a fire that wants to have gasoline poured on them. What's that old Batman line? It's like, excuse me, Master Wayne, I think you don't understand this. There's some people that only want to, they don't care about money, they don't care about power, they just want to watch the world burn. There are these people out there that want gasoline poured on them, they want attention. If it's negative, positive, makes no difference. And they should be seen but not heard. You just ignore them like a fart in the wind, and that is the absolute best way. And this is exactly how government should be treated. If you ignore them, then they're going to do it like a child. You ignore a child, it's going to go burn its hand on the stove or something and do something horrible. So people that completely ignore the government are obviously doing the wrong thing, just like a child, a parent would be ignoring a child. It's going to do something horrible, wrong, like, oh my God. They should be seen and not heard. So you always got your eye on them, but you ignore them. Life is short. You need to live your own life. Excuse me, it's just my personal view on this. You agree with me, disagree, doesn't matter. But I don't break any laws, but I also I don't care about the left or the right. I ignore government because all governments are evil, and they're just like children. They're just ignorant. And the reason why governments are evil is the same reason corporations are evil. They're not alive. Fundamentally, if you want to reduce, people really have never put their finger on why governments and corporations are so evil. There are many, many reasons, of course. It's all about greed, money, and power. But fundamentally, they're evil because they're not alive. A corporation and a government is not a being. There are many people that are running it and moving it, but they're all like blind men and women pushing around some sort of titanic, monstrous beast that harms things and rolls over people and destroys people and destroys lives. That's literally what government and corporations are like. Imagine something huge and titanic, like a giant monstrous statue. Maybe it's like dangerous to touch, and it's heavy, and if you get mowed over by it, it'll kill you. Government and big corporations are like a giant, dangerous, heavy statue that is being pushed around in various directions by blind people that are fundamentally ignorant. And you would never take your eye off of that. It's like, I don't want to get mowed over by the giant statue. It might roll over me and kill me. But you ignore it because these are not living things. They're not. They're just giant idols and symbolism, because that's all governments are as corporations. Because all these corporations have stupid logos. Nikon logo, Toyota logo, Toyota, the Chevrolet logo, the Ford logo. These are just giant symbols. They're entities that are worshipped by people. And they're being pushed around by blind fools. But they keep building it and throwing more fecal matter on the statue so it gets bigger and heavier, and the bigger and heavier it gets, the more dangerous it gets. And you need to treat them like children. You got your eye on them, but you ignore them because they're not alive. They are fundamentally evil. They do almost nothing but brilliant words. I forget who said it. So the most dangerous words ever said were, "Hello, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." So, governments are evil. If you could take nothing away from me other than metaphysics and field theory, understand that the reason why governments and corporations are so evil is they're not alive. And if you think about that, of course it's absolutely true. They have no soul. Something is not alive has no soul. But there are evil zeitgeist that's pushing this giant monolith around. It's like mowing people over and killing people and destroying people's lives. That's what they are, so I treat them like children. I watch them, but I ignore them. Same with this very, very small percentage of evil people. Some of them will like email me every day. It's like, I ignore them. First half of a sentence, I know who it is. So it's the same evil person, delete. They're just, they're crazy. I don't give them any air. They are a fire that wants to be fed. Like that movie Backdraft, where like the fire is alive and it wants you to open the doors so you could feed it with more oxygen so it could grow bigger. It doesn't matter if the attention is positive or negative. It only wants attention. And some people, they don't care about their own lives. They're so focused on hating other people. They ultimately, of course, burn themselves up. It's like, life is short. Instead of hating someone else, just like, don't watch them. In the case of me, for example, just concentrate on your own life, making your own life better. But people are so blind and so fundamentally, some people, a small percentage of people, so blind and fundamentally ignorant that they can't see this. It keeps them alive. Like the hate is the fire that keeps them alive. But of course it's consuming them from the inside out. They'll just end up a husk. These are lessons that I've learned in life. And really, other than a few things that make you happy, don't ever, and I failed at this in many parts of my life, don't ever sink your money into things that are a waste, especially like vehicles. Some people like spend all their income on upgrading their vehicle. You'll never get that money back. It's just totally like flushing your money down the toilet. Totally like that. Don't sink your money into things that's just making you poor. I mean, sinking it into things where it's going to pay you back. Your money should be thought of as little helper people. Yeah, all your little money is like, you go do this for me, go do that for me. Instead, people like, oh, here's money. I'm going to give it away to like buy some sort of irrelevant piece of poo that I don't really need. It's like, whoa, it's so cool. You're bored with it a week later and it sits on the shelf collecting dust. Don't do that. That's a huge, huge mistake in life. I failed on that on many spectrums. So I'm not saying that, you can learn from people's failures, right? It's like people can actually teach you something if they themselves have failed at it. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Sorry about my holster analogy, but I thought it was very apropos. Thank you. Bye.